Well, hello everyone. I'm David. I'm the Business Development Manager for Shapemaster. It really is, it's such a pleasure to see so many of you here, all of our friends from around the country in different Shapemaster suites. And what's particularly a pleasure is to have our friends from the leisure sector here, friends who are operating Shapemaster suites in public sector leisure centres, but also our friends from the independent sector, people who are running high street independent sites. Barbara from Monmouth, you might recognise the gentleman on the screen there. I think that is that's an image from your site that we've used there, which is lovely, of the smiley gentleman. So this is the first time we've had the public sector leisure sector and also the independent sector together in one meeting. And this is a meeting rather than a formal webinar. We hope that it will be interactive, that throughout the meeting you'll submit questions into the chat function at the bottom. If you hover your mouse, you'll see the chat function, and you can submit questions into there, and we'll try and answer them at the end in the Q&A section at the end of the meeting. We hope that this will just be a short meeting, so we hope to be finished just before 3 o'clock. But the purpose of the meeting is to talk about the vital assets that you've got in your Shapemaster suite, in your center, in your gym or your center. And I use the word vital because that means life. And I will never forget, and I hope to see Dave smile in a second, I will never forget when Joan from Sheppey Leisure Centre said that the health studio, the Shapemaster suite at Sheppey Leisure Centre, she said, this has given me my life back. And that means the world to us, and that's what we're about now. I think this is our moment to show our value to our communities and to say we have got a Shapemaster suite, and this is what it can do to help you come back to our centres and to get your life back, to unlock your life. That's what I think the moment that I think we have here. So hopefully this meeting will give you resources and information and the opportunity to ask questions that will enable you to prove what a huge asset you've got, unlike any of your competitors around you, a massive asset that will help you to recover your business from COVID, but also help your local community to recover from the lockdown experience that we've had over the last few months. We've got an asset that is automatically social distanced. That's a really reassuring message that you can send out to your community, that because of the way we run our Shapemaster suites, that social distance is built in already because of the booking system that we have. We've got a controlled membership flow. So you never see, with the way that we run our sites, you never see a surge in members coming in unexpectedly. It's all controlled and planned. So these are really reassuring messages that we want to help you send out into your community. And so I think this is our time to take action and to reassure our communities, to reassure our existing members, and to encourage new members to come and join the experience that you have created, so that your centre can restore to pre-lockdown memberships and then to grow after that. And we've got some really good ideas. We've been thinking about the assets that you need in order to grow your, restore your suite and then grow it beyond there. So at the end of the meeting, just before the Q&As, I will take us through some of the marketing assets that we have developed for your benefit, which are free for you to use, and you'll be able to access through the portal, the link that we'll send out in our follow-up over the next day. And I'm very grateful to John and the team at TA6, not only for hosting this meeting, but also for helping us to develop these assets. So they've used their marketing expertise to get the messaging right on the assets that I'll share with you at the end of this meeting. And we've also updated our COVID response information document. This has got operational advice that's been generated in line with UK active and government advice, content for letters that you could send out to your members. And we're also working on a press release that you can use to draft and send out to your local press. But the main event of this meeting really is our friend Rachel Young. Rachel is a member of the Charter Society of Physiotherapists. She's the co-lead for the rehabilitation program at the Advanced Wellness Research Centre at Sheffield Hallam University. And we've been working with Rachel for a few years now on the benefits of power-assisted exercise equipment for people living with neurological conditions and long-term conditions. And she's going to share with us today a really interesting report on the impact of lockdown and shielding on older people. She's going to talk to us about the benefits of power-assisted exercise equipment for older people and those living with long-term health conditions. And finally, Rachel will share her thoughts on the role of exercise post-COVID and also long COVID, and how the thoughts that we would like to share with you on that. So after that, I'll share our resources. We'll have our Q&As. Please continue to put your questions in the chat function at the bottom of our screen. But for now, I will hand you over to Rachel Young.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I'm sure many of the people who are attending the webinar have had the pleasure of meeting you during our visits to sites when we've done training sessions and publicity sessions. And those events are always really valuable to me. I always feel like I learn a lot by being on the road, going to centres, meeting users there, meeting the teams that support the Shapemaster suites. So it's nice to meet you all again in this novel setting today, and really sort of look at where we are at the end of this year and how going forwards Shapemaster facilities can offer such a lot to those people who've experienced changes as a result of lockdown and COVID. We just need to go to the next slide, please.
Sorry, Rachel, just bear with me.
No problem. That's great. Thank you, John. So if we go on to oh yeah, that's working. Fantastic. So what's happened over the last few months in response to lockdown and shielding, Age UK have invested in a nationwide survey to explore the impact of lockdown and those shielding populations, and how it's impacted people from both a mental and a physical health point of view. So the survey was delivered out through social media channels and captured 569 respondents. 369 of these people were older adults themselves. A further 200 people were carers or children who answered on behalf of the older person. But also they captured a representative poll of a further 1,346 people, all aged over 60, and 40% of these people live with a long-term condition. So collectively, almost 2,000 responses sharing the experiences of older people or people who've been shielding in terms of how they feel lockdown has changed their way of life and their physical and mental well-being. So if we go to the next slide, please, thank you. So 1 in 3 people across those respondents shared that they have less energy. 1 in 4 older people are saying that they're unable to walk as far as before. And 1 in 5 people feel that they are less steady on their feet. And pulled out these two quotes from the report because I think they capture different ends of the spectrum. So first of all, we've got a female who's aged between 85 and 89, and the daughter is commenting that mum used to catch buses to the next town, walk across town and back home on the bus. Now she's struggling to walk down the path. So we're looking at an older female whose mobility and ability to get out and about has declined significantly over lockdown. On the other hand, we've got a younger male aged between 65 and 69 who feels it's put on weight, his blood pressure has gone up, his blood sugars are unstable. So we're looking at someone who, from a risk factor point of view, the chances of this individual going on to experience something like a cardiac event or to have a stroke are significantly increased as well. So in terms of both risk factors for further illness or just physical independence, these results indicate a really worrying impact from lockdown and shielding. If we go on to the next slide. So as well as physical well-being, people are also reporting changes in terms of their lifestyle, their ability to eat well, and also their cognitive function as well. So 1 in 5 older people agreed that since the start of lockdown, they are finding it harder to remember things. And one family member of a female who was aged between 75 and 79 specifically commented that she's become more confused. She wasn't allowed her routine of going to the shops and she couldn't see all of her family members. So those everyday activities, those routines which help to keep people orientated if they are experiencing, for example, the early stages of dementia, that those symptoms have become much worse as a result of the changes. And that 35% of people who already had some difficulty preparing food reported that that was now more difficult. And someone specifically commented with regard to their mother was that the mobility has had an effect on the pain and caused her to stop eating as well. And we know that in the absence of good nutrition, physical function will decline as well. And finally, as we mentioned earlier, quite a high proportion of those people, so approximately 40% of those people who responded to the survey already had a pre-existing health conditions. And we can see that the impact has been harder hitting on those groups specifically. So those people who were already living with, for example, osteoarthritis, respiratory changes, possibly neurological changes such as stroke, were describing a much greater effect. So 33% reported feeling less steady on their feet, 43% unable to walk as far as they had been able to prior to the lockdown, 24% reported being less independent, and 33% of people who were older adults living with a long-term condition felt that it was harder to walk up and down stairs. And specific comments such as I've put on weight, so it's hard to exercise because the weight gain has affected my arthritis. Or someone else with osteoporosis commented that the lack of usual exercise has made my osteoporosis worse. So I've suffered from a fractured vertebra. So what really worries me here is just how hard it is to regain, to recover that physical ability, particularly in this older age group. So we're looking at people whose physical performance will naturally decline associated with the aging process. So they will be experiencing muscle loss anyway because they are getting older. Their aerobic fitness will decline because their heart will be less efficient as the aging process continues. But that aging process has accelerated so much for a lot of these individuals. And I think for us as teams of people out there to support this population, we've got a really big task in front of us in terms of trying to reverse those changes and helping people to recover who they were at the start of this year. So how does power-assisted exercise fit into this? The reasons why I like these machines are summarised here. So first of all, it's the global multi-directional movement that can be accessed through Shapemaster equipment. Shapemaster equipment is so much more than assisted pedalling. It's about moving the body in multiple directions, moving the limbs and the trunk in sync with each other. And in that way, they sort of replicate everyday life and the types of movements we might perform whilst moving around the house, going out into the community. So we have patterns of either reciprocal, so alternate, or some symmetrical limb movement across the different machines, but also that some machines, particularly machines such as the side bend stepper or the rotatory torso, incorporate trunk movement. Movement of the trunk is fundamental to balance and everyday function, so people get a really effective global workout and a stretch of most of the soft tissues across the body with the equipment. For me, my background as a neurological physiotherapist, I find the fact that the machines initiate movement really valuable. So people living with neurological impairment will often have difficulty initiating movement. With power-assisted exercise, the machines start the movement for you and also sustain the movement. So those populations, for example, people with respiratory changes or chronic fatigue who have difficulty sustaining movement over any duration of time, can continue to move, and they can change their effort levels according to what is right for them on a given day. And finally, all of those key physiological systems are stimulated with power-assisted exercise. So people can put a demand upon their aerobic system. If they generate a lot of effort with the movement, then their heart rate will increase and they should become fitter from a cardiovascular point of view. But also the neuromuscular system is moved and the muscles will join in the activity. So hopefully we should get changes in the muscle tissue as well. And finally, but importantly, it's also a really positive sensory experience. So people get a lot of sensory feedback from the equipment, from the experience of moving. And that's especially valuable at the end of the year, where most of us have been much more sedentary than we would have been normally. So who benefits from power-assisted exercise? There's no individual who wouldn't gain some benefit from going on the equipment, but particularly older adults, people with neurological conditions, so specifically stroke, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, people with a history of brain injury, people with cardiorespiratory disease such as COPD, but also people with heart disease as well who might be looking for something to carry on their cardiac rehabilitation. The equipment is especially popular amongst people with musculoskeletal changes, so people with an arthritis diagnosis, but also those people with soft tissue injury or areas of inflammation. People with long-term pain report great benefit from using the equipment, including people with fibromyalgia, and also surgical populations, so people who might want to prehab prior to surgery, but also accelerate their recovery post-surgery as well. So it's not, it doesn't encompass all groups, that list, but it highlights just how diverse the equipment is in terms of the range of people who might potentially benefit from using it. What I'm going to do next is just quickly go through some of the key machines available in most of the centres in the UK, and just talk particularly about the benefits of these specific machines. So it doesn't cover all of the machines, but we'll think about how the different machines might help people to restore strength and function following lockdown. So starting off with the cross cycle, the cycling action improves leg strength, so the pedalling action of the legs is good to help people to activate their leg muscles. Most people have ridden a bike at some point in their lives, so it's a familiar movement pattern, and you get nice activation of particularly the quadricep muscles and the hamstring muscles whilst people are on this machine. But tied in with that, we also get the action of the upper limbs moving backwards and forwards, so the arms are getting a stretch. And it's a bit like an assisted version of an assault bike. So people are using their arms and the legs in sync with each other to get that global benefit. But something that this machine is particularly good for is helping people to improve their aerobic fitness. So encouraging users maybe for the first 30 seconds to a minute to gradually warm up, get accustomed to the movement, but then having a minute or 90 seconds in the middle of their workout where they're generating more effort and becoming breathless and warm as they move with the machine before tapering off towards the end to cool down a bit. And it depends which console you've got, but some of the program settings can help people to pace their effort during their workout on the cross cycle. So older adults, they lose their fitness. So those of you who are familiar with terms such as VO2 max, that capacity that we have to get blood out to the tissues to enable movement without becoming breathless, it does decline with older adults. The data that we're looking at from this year suggests that a lot of older adults have experienced an accelerated decline in their aerobic fitness. So this machine is really positive for people to be able to work with either an interval training, so increasing and decreasing their effort, or just sustaining a nice long moderate effort to recover that efficiency in the cardiovascular system. But older adults, again, they become sarcopenic, so they lose muscle mass, and that again has been accelerated this year. So they will benefit from the improved limb strength, which this machine will stimulate. People with cardiorespiratory disease, so for example, COPD, asthma, history of heart problems, will also very much benefit from the improved fitness and stamina that this machine will offer. And then people with neurological changes will benefit from the symmetry that this machine encourages. So the pedaling action of the legs, the nice alternate action of the upper limbs makes it a really good choice, for example, for people with stroke. Good, so we'll move on to the next machine, which is the chest and legs. I think this is one of the most accessible machines that Shapemaster manufactures, certainly within the seated range. So often people with very limited mobility, very limited range of movement in the limbs will be able to access this machine and use it successfully. So if you've got either new users whose level of physical condition is very limited, or their mobility is very limited, or you've got returning customers who've lost a lot of confidence, this is a really good starting machine for people to just get used to power assisted exercise again and getting used to the experience of moving. So for older adults, it will help them to restore and build muscle. For people with cardiorespiratory disease, it can apply interval training to improve their stamina. And again, for people with neurological changes, it's really good for promoting symmetry and strength. Lovely, we'll move on to the next one. So the flies and thighs. This machine's unique selling point is the fact that it takes people out into abduction, so it moves the arms and legs away from the body and back in again. And this is a movement that's especially important for balance. So if we think of occasions when we nearly stumble or lose our balance, that step out to the side or that reach out to the side is often the movement which prevents a fall. So I particularly like this machine for those people who are at risk of falling or have reduced balance function. But also it really gives the shoulders and the hips a good stretch as well. So older adults will gain flexibility and balance. It will reduce their risk of falling. But people with cardiorespiratory disease will also have the added benefit of getting a really nice stretch across the front of the chest, across the pectoralis major, meaning that their breathing capacity might improve as well. And for people with neurological changes, again, the benefits in terms of balance and strength are really valuable. The seated climber, so again, this is a machine a bit like the cross cycle with a high aerobic demand. So it's quite hard work, particularly the upper limb action associated with this machine. And it's really positive for giving people a nice stretch through the shoulders as well, whilst the lower limbs move in a stepping action, which helps them to improve walking and the ability to go up and down stairs. So thinking back to earlier, the fact that 33% of respondents were describing difficulty with stairs, this machine could really help recover that ability to take a deeper step. So older adults using the seated climber will gain improved walking ability, but it will also help them to recover or improve the range of movement in their shoulders. So for example, they can reach for kitchen cupboards or reach for other things that they need to be able to access. People with cardiorespiratory disease, it's really good for improving aerobic capacity. And the only caution we attach to that is if someone does have high blood pressure, which isn't well stabilised and medicated, then they should only use the upper limbs passively. So they shouldn't be generating a lot of effort through the upper limbs above their head. People with neurological disability often find this machine a really positive challenge. It will give the shoulders a long stretch, but also help with their gait cycle and mobility too. Good, and then the tricep dip leg curl machine. So this emulates part of getting out of a chair. So as the arms push down, you activate the triceps, which is really good for strengthening, particularly the elbow joint. but also the leg curl component of this machine gives people improved lower limb function too. So it helps people to move more successfully from sit to stand, which is fundamental for personal independence. It helps people with cardiorespiratory changes to restore lost muscle. And it's especially important for people with neurological disability who often have difficulty recruiting the tricep muscle and getting in and out of chairs. So a really nice all-rounder machine, particularly for strengthening the arms and the legs. And finally, the last machine that we're going to look at today is the side bend stepper. And this gives people a really nice stretch through the side of the trunk, so really good for people who might experience pain. But it's also quite a high demand machine as well, so sometimes it feels more like a stretching machine, but actually the movement that's assisted through both the arms and the legs, if people generate quite a lot of effort with that, there will be an aerobic demand attached to this machine as well. So it's good for older adults who will gain flexibility and balance. It's good for people with back pain because it gives them a really unique stretch down their side, which is often tight. So that will go on to improve mobility and quality of life. But also people with neurological changes really like this machine and they feel that they gain a lot of symmetry, balance and strength as a result of exercising on it. Okay, so just quickly, just to summarise some of the research that's been ongoing in Sheffield. So we are looking at fairly robust clinical trials where people are invited to come and use the equipment, and we measure function at the start of a trial and at the end of the trial. And this was a study that was published last year, where we brought in people who had really quite complex neurological changes. They were a mixed diagnostic group, including stroke, MS, and brain injury. And what was particularly striking about the results of this study, although it was only a small sample at that point in time, nobody dropped out from it. So it's really unusual in exercise research to have 100% completion rate, which we did, but also 96% attendance. So people were coming in twice a week to use the equipment, and the attendance rate was 96%. So it was very rare that somebody phoned in to say that they couldn't attend on a given day. We used the timed up and go, and again, some of you, particularly during some of the training sessions that we might have done, will have practiced using the timed up and go. It basically involves standing up from a chair, walking 3 meters around a cone, returning to the chair and sitting back down again. Now, normal values for a healthy adult range from between 5 to 8 seconds to complete that task. What we were seeing with this group was that they were actually taking 16 seconds at the start of the study, which indicates these were people who were only able to move slowly and probably experienced some difficulty in terms of moving from sitting into standing and turning around. What we noted at the end of the study was that actually that average time had dropped from 16 seconds down to 12 seconds, indicating that as a result of using the equipment, these people with complex changes had become much quicker in terms of their ability to stand up, walk a short distance, turn round and manage that movement from standing back down into sitting as well. So some really encouraging results there. And with the teams at Sheffield Hallam, we're looking to grow our portfolio of research so we can better understand the benefits of using the equipment amongst more complex clinical populations. So what's emerging at the moment is a new condition known as long COVID. And it's an area of much contention at the moment, and certainly the Twitter feeds that I follow, there's a lot of strong opinion as to how and when individuals presenting with long COVID should be managed. So I think as I sort of enter these slides, it's with caution really, because it's a new condition, it isn't well understood yet, but it does seem to align to very similar symptoms that somebody might experience with ME. So what is happening at the moment is that the knowledge and the expertise that people have in terms of managing ME is being extrapolated over to long COVID to give us the best information that we can about how to support individuals with long COVID. So again, it's difficult to identify exactly the proportion of people who've had a COVID positive result will go on to develop long COVID. But it suggests that it's between 5 to 10% of people who have been COVID positive at some point will go on to develop symptoms of long COVID. The symptoms include breathlessness, fatigue, cough and headache. So some symptoms in common with what we might expect from somebody who's got an acute diagnosis of COVID. But what we're seeing is that these symptoms are persisting much longer than we would expect. So most people who've had COVID or been COVID positive, but have only had a mild to moderate episode of the virus, will be feeling much better within 4 weeks. Most of those people will be fully recovered within 8 weeks. So for those people who are still experiencing symptoms between 8 to 12 weeks following their COVID diagnosis or their COVID exposure, then that is where we would be concerned that they are developing signs of long COVID and may be very vulnerable in terms of their long-term health if they don't access the best management at the right point in time. And some of the key signs that people will feel worse after exercise, so they get this post-exertional fatigue, where if they've done something which might only be very small amount of activity compared to what is normal for them, but they still feel exhausted afterwards, and that the symptoms are much worse afterwards, and that might happen between 24 and 48 hours after the exercise. So they might feel okay at the point of doing exercise, they might feel okay for the following 24 hours, but what happens is between 24 hours and 48 hours post-activity that there's an exacerbation in the symptoms, which might include worsened fatigue, it might include palpitations, brain fog, and also sensory changes such as pins and needles as well. So we're seeing a real pattern of relief and relapse with these individuals, and it's very difficult to predict what might exacerbate their symptoms and at what point they might be stabilising and hopefully entering a period of longer term recovery. So we'll go on to the next slide. And again, it depends which source you read, because it's such new information, it's changing continuously. But a report published by the British Medical Journal suggested that older adults might be more vulnerable to long COVID than younger people. But then I've also read a couple of other reports which suggest the opposite way round. It also would seem that people with a higher BMI are slightly more likely to develop long COVID. Amongst younger adults, it appears to be more prevalent amongst younger women than younger men, which is the opposite way round to when we're looking at hospital admissions associated with COVID. So if we look at acute COVID, it appears that males seem to become more unwell than females. But looking at vulnerability for long COVID, it seems that it might be something that females are experiencing more than men. And whilst it's associated with being more unwell during that first week of infection, a lot of people presenting with long COVID were never hospitalised. So although they were unwell with their COVID infection, they weren't unwell to the point of needing hospitalisation. They were able to manage their symptoms at home and initially felt like they were throwing it off, initially felt like they were going in the right direction, but then a few weeks down the line, experiencing persistent symptoms or relapses which are suggestive of long COVID. And these couple of quotes captured by the British Medical Journal really brought it home to me just how fatigued some of these individuals are. So on the right there, that quote that you have to drop your baseline by 90%. You're a different person. And this was an active female who shared this experience that for someone who might normally walk 6 miles a day, literally going for a half-mile walk per day, and that might need to be in 2 quarter miles of short walks, is all that they can tolerate. So there's some really strong findings about the risks associated with exercise for this population. And the other thing is that a key part of managing these symptoms is that people must stop before the fatigue comes on. So with exercise, it may exacerbate their cardiac changes, it may increase fatigue symptoms, it may trigger a relapse. And at this point in time, we don't have any data on how people with long COVID will respond to power-assisted exercise, but we are hoping to be able to capture some data through a research study at some point soon. An application is going in next week to try to get some funding to explore this within the safety of a research trial. But going on to the next slide, thinking about how we might support people with long COVID, it's possible that people will come to your centres with long COVID. It is possible that power-assisted exercise may be beneficial to them, but we can't be sure about that. So it's really important that these people are monitored very carefully. So first of all, make sure that their overall management, their overall condition is being monitored by a health or medical professional, and that they have been recommended that they can start to perform some gentle physical activity, that it has been recommended for them. Advise minimal physical effort as they resume exercise. So on the Shapemaster equipment, that the effort is just passive, that people just do short sessions, so they might not go around the full circuit of equipment, that they work at a very low intensity, and that they take rest periods. And that also people rest before they become tired, and that seems to be one of the key things, that people pace their activity so they don't work to the point of fatigue. They work well before fatigue comes on and stop well before fatigue starts. And then record how people feel 24 to 48 hours following exercise. Did you feel better the next day? Did you actually feel really fatigued? Did you feel worse than you expected to? And if anyone is reporting worsened symptoms potentially associated with exercise, then the exercise does need to stop at that point in time, and they do need to access a medical review before hopefully resuming activity, but at the right point in time, at the right intensity for that individual. So it's a difficult message, because for me it goes against the grain, and for I'm sure many of our colleagues sharing this webinar today, you know, we're passionate about exercise and activity. We recognise the benefit that it represents, but for nearly all user groups that we come across. But this user group, this or this long COVID user group, may be an exception, and they are a population that we need to support very gently in terms of pacing activity very carefully and resuming activity in a very cautious way. Thank you for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with everybody this afternoon. Thank you.
I think I need to be made the host again.
Oh yes, sorry, I took it to John actually, because I'm going to you, Dave, now. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm just trying to start my video again. Oh, there we go. So Rachel, that was really interesting. Thank you very much. You covered so much powerful information in that short period of time, and we're really grateful. All of us, I'm sure everyone on this meeting is really grateful to you for putting those three key pieces of information together. I actually, we've had lots of questions, so I'm going to share the resource information very quickly, because that will be available, and I'd love to ask a lot of, I've had questions by email, text, and on this screen as well. So yeah, thanks again, Rachel.
Yeah.
One question I'd like to ask the audience, it's slightly rhetorical, but for all of you here, you all run your own brilliant Shapemaster centres, and considering what Rachel's just told us, I would like to ask you where your thoughts are, what you are doing to make your suite an essential, a vital part of the solution in your local community, because that's what you've got. You've got, as I said, a vital asset. And I'd love to ask you to start. I'm sure you have been, but the Shapemaster, if you're running a leisure centre, for example, I know that the Shapemaster suite is one part of it, but it's a unique asset that you've got. And I'd love to know, I'd love to pose that question now. What are you doing to make sure that that is part of the central solution in your local community? because your competitors don't have that. And the same for the independent operators here. You've got something that nobody has around, and it's with all of Rachel's advice and wonderful information today, there's so much that you can offer. And I did put a question in the chat box that asked or suggested that you could use when Rachel was talking about the benefits of each machine. I mean, what a wonderful marketing asset you've got there, with social media feeds and so on. Each one of those could be a tweet in itself and engaging people. So I thought that was good. So my question to you is, what are you doing to make it part of your solution? We've got loads of other questions. I will very quickly share with you the assets that we have developed for you to use. They will be free for you to use. John, can you nod that everybody can see your first brilliant social media buffer? So these will all be in the portal that we'll send you the link to. You do have access to our portal already. We've sent it out at various times in the past, but it will be part of the follow-up from this meeting. But with John's help, with TA6's help, with John and Rob and our marketing manager, Carissa, we've created a suite of marketing templates that you can use, which we think have key messages that you can quickly get out there and either directly edit these templates or just take the messages and put them into your own. So this is a social media asset: boost your quality of life and return to good health. Now this is from this wonderful quote, "Exercise the wonder drug." This is from Dame Tanny Gray-Thompson, who's the chair of UK Active. And there are so many ways in which exercise is seen to be the wonder drug. There was a statistic in a UK Active document that if only a half or a fraction of the over 55s started to take part in regular exercise, it would save the NHS something like £7 billion just through exercise. So this is another social media asset that you've got here, a good message. Revitalize your mind and body after lockdown. How many people would love to hear that? So there's a good message for you to use. Unlock with confidence. So all the things that I was saying earlier about the fact that your suite is socially distanced, we will share, we've encouraged you in various ways to show how you're back on site cleaning your suites and putting a video out on your Facebook page, for example, to say we're back on site, we're cleaning, getting ready for you. It's socially distanced, it's controlled and managed. You can come back to exercise with confidence and unlock your life again. And from the first lockdown, I know that there were lots of Shapemaster sites who mentioned how quickly their Shapemaster members came back after lockdown. Start boosting your immunity today. That's a very strong message that you can use. And then we've created assets such as, with similar messages like these posters. You can see here, it says insert your logo here and your key messages. So that's the type of marketing assets that we're making available to you. Again, this is the Wonder Drug one. Start boosting your immunity. Revitalize and lockdown. So this is the same message in a different format, which you can use. Here's an idea we had. Why don't you offer or consider offering to your community a temporary membership, a 3-month membership? They may not want to stay as Shapemaster members or your members of your suite after once COVID has gone away or lockdown's gone away, or if they start to feel better. Why not offer a package like that to fill up some of the quieter slots? You probably experience the same, that most of the centres I speak to around the country say that up to about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, at lunchtime is the busiest time. But you've got a period between 12 and 4 where you could start to promote new memberships for example, a temporary 3-month bounce back membership. So that was an idea where we thought you could actually bring in a bit more money for 3 months, and some of them may stay as full members, but it might help reduce the barrier for a membership. Unfreeze your membership. This is something that we imagined, that there may be members of your wider leisure centre who don't yet want to unfreeze their traditional offer memberships. But because the fact, as Rachel mentioned to me last week, some people might have been ill and they may not be able to face going back to the more high intensity gym. This could be a way that where you use your Shapemaster suite to unlock, obviously I'm talking to the leisure centres here, but you might unlock other memberships, unfreeze them more quickly by saying there's a gentler socially distanced exercise available. So you could give them a temporary pass to the Shapemaster suite. And here's an example of a banner that you might use for the outside. So this has been designed, again, put your logo here and contact details. So that's the marketing assets that we are making available to you. They will be in the portal. Can you nod again, John? Can you now see the Word document? Brilliant. I'll just quickly whiz through this. This will be in the portal. Support and guidance on reopening of your Shapemaster suite. There was a previous version. I'm just going to edit it a bit more after today's meeting. But this has got advice, operational advice for you, and this is free for you to use. It's been created in conjunction in line with UK Active's updated recommended operational framework. That's well worth looking at. I've highlighted this here because it's showing what a commercial asset you've got, that at the end of the last recession in 2008, the older market was the one that unlocked our economy. So I would recommend you reading that. Some operational recommendations here, which you can read through. I think this partially answers one of the questions. It's just a plea from us. Please do not spray directly cleaning materials onto the consoles. Spray onto a cloth and wipe gently, because we've had some problems with people reporting faults of the consoles. Here's some information about appropriate cleaning of your upholstery here. Whizzing through. If your members can't come back, please do share with them our exercise at home videos, of which Rachel is a frequent star of those exercise at home videos. Here is an an example letter that you might want to send out to your members, to your existing members, to give them confidence to come back. They like the personal touch. So that's some content that you could use. And we're also working on some draft press release content that you might wish to use to engage your local media. So that is a very quick tour, but you'll be able to see all of these assets and these resources when we share the link later. Can you now see a slide that says Q&A? No. Okay, I think I can reshare. Okay. There we go. So I wanted to run through those very quickly because we have some wonderful questions that have come in through the chat function, although I cannot see them. I'm going to stop the share now. I'm just going to go to this view because I couldn't see the questions. Did you want to speak, John?
No, I was just going to let you get set up. Do you want me to take the first question that came in over the email about marketing?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So I think it was Barbara actually asked about marketing the Shapemaster suites at this time. And I think I've just got 2 points. One is two phases really. The first phase is to get your existing customers back. So don't jump the gun and start advertising to new customers without reassuring your existing databases that it's safe to come back, and taking a lot of the messages that Rachel's got on the decommissioned market particularly, and thinking about their concerns and hesitations about coming back. It might take a personal phone call to each of those members, which is a little bit intensive, but and Ben's nodding his head. I know some sites have done that and it works very well. So do invest the time in your existing members first. And then if you're going to go and attract new customers, it's, again, understanding those customers that they might be afraid to come into the centres. So can you take videos of your existing suite, of staff talking to customers, of existing customers saying about their comeback and how they've made the return and how they feel safe and secure in the facility. So I would say use as much video as you can, but focus on your existing customers first to get those back into the facilities.
Can I can add to that if there are, I don't know what you think about this, John, but I mentioned earlier about, I absolutely agree with you that focusing on getting the existing members back is vital. And I speak to lots of the centres, as you mentioned, Ben's done this really well, and various other centres who have taken the time to phone their members. But what do you think? The beauty of the suites is that the attendance is controlled. So the majority of members will want to attend between, say, 7 in the morning and 12 or 1 at lunchtime. And then maybe if you do want to start to phase in new members or those unfreezing of existing leisure centre members, maybe the sort of the off-peak slots around 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon could be a way of reassuring existing members that we're looking after them first, but sort of off stage, if you like. You could be opening the suite without the knowledge of even the existing members, of newer members, but in the times when the existing members don't necessarily want to attend. So you're using up unused space really to start to bring in the newer members.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's a great idea. I think a lot of the operators on the call will be hesitant about opening hours and changing people's patterns, but it's definitely worth trying when you've got unused space. Yeah,
so I'm really meaning that you keep the existing members' patterns there. They don't need to be touched, but it's those spaces between around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon that are underused really in most centres, I would say, that you might. It's just food for thought, isn't it? Thanks, John. And also the materials that Barbara, the materials that Rachel was talking about, the individual machines. Each one of them has got a benefit that is a marketing asset. So I would use those things. I'll just whiz through a few of the questions. What cleaning? This is from Laura. Sorry, hello, Laura. What cleaning chemicals best used on the control panel? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the most important thing is not to spray directly onto the screens. Use something very a light detergent really, and wipe it on a cloth rather than spraying directly onto the machines, onto the consoles. I hope that helps. But something gentle, but not to drench the consoles. Diane Evans asked, do we help or supply risk assessments? We don't, but the information that I provided about UK Active, they might do. There's a link on the resource portal, on the resource document. UK Active might provide risk assessments information on there, but do get in touch if you think that we might be able to help. We might be able to put you in touch with people who do that. And maybe we can also put that question out that Diane, I don't know whether you run an independent site or a leisure centre, but maybe some of the larger leisure operators would be willing to be friendly and share some information about that and some advice for a template that they might use. I don't know if that could be possible. Julie Mulhall. Oh, this is probably one for Rachel. I've seen members on the flies and thighs machine bending forward due to the arm position. Of course, boosters and back pads can be used, but is it usual for members to have to use these, or would you suggest making the back of the seat adjustable? Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's probably not the most popular machine because it is hard to access for some users. I think the benefits that we talked about in terms of helping balance make it a really valuable machine, but the range of movement required at the shoulders is long. So I think as we progress product development, then to have a hinge at the back, or something like the cross cycle has, where people can move the back of the seat forwards or backwards depending upon leg length, would work very well with this machine. So I think do what you can with the bolsters and the cushions or other accessories available. For some people, I know we typically use things like the active hands or the straps for people who've maybe got a stroke or neurological change. But if you've just got someone who's petite or stiff, those accessories again can help them to get access to the handles without directly holding them, so they can join in the movement. And if a user looks particularly unsafe on that machine, then probably best to avoid it from their circuit.
Thanks, Rachel. I have two questions I'd like to join together. Sorry, Rachel, they're for you again. I think so anyway. Would you suggest taking members' temperatures before they enter the suite? And do we need a medical certificate if they are suffering with long COVID? So
I think what we'd encourage, we wouldn't advise directly on this, or certainly not mandate anyway. I think the benefits of temperature screening is that those people who might be having a kind of asymptomatic COVID, temperature check-in may identify those individuals. It'll certainly identify other individuals who might not be COVID positive but brewing something else, which equally, you know, such as a cold or flu, which equally could be problematic and infectious in that type of environment. So I wouldn't say you definitely have to screen temperatures. You need to refer to your own normal operating procedures to make that decision, but I would encourage it. I think certainly for myself as a gym user, I got a lot of reassurance by the fact that we were all temperature checked as we entered the premises. With regard to a medical certificate for people presenting with long COVID, again, it's a bit like the any sort of health declaration. So I would look at your existing operating policy about whether or not you do health declaration, how you encourage users to sign off a health screen as they take up membership or renew membership at your centre. So for some places, if they've got an exercise referral pathway, that will be a given anyway. Other people, they might want, if a condition is highlighted through a health questionnaire at the start of their membership. Some operators insist that those users who've highlighted a condition go back to their GP or health professional to get sign off. Other operators will bring individuals in and just ask them to sign a health declaration. And really, I think the same applies here. So I know it's not a black and white answer, but you know, if someone had came to you and said that maybe 6 months earlier they'd had a heart attack, think about how do we currently manage that type of scenario? Do we get them to sign off here, or do we send them back to their GP? And it's the same kind of question really, if that makes sense. If you are an operator that encourages people just to sign off a health declaration rather than going back in the loop to their GP or health professional, then ask them about their long COVID symptoms, and especially ask them about that, how they feel after exercise, and encourage them to keep a diary, because people will often forget that maybe if they go every Tuesday, that actually they'd felt really tired out on the Thursday, which was possibly a sign that they'd overdone it. So encourage people to monitor their response to exercise if they are presenting with long COVID.
Thank you, Rachel. Lovely comment from Lewis. Hello, Lewis. Thank you for the information, Rachel, for the confidence videos that they've shared with the members already. That's lovely. Richard Minton. Hello, Richard. Richard's from Chichester. A new suite which we installed there recently. Richard said, as a new site plan, we use social media, send text alert, conduct outreach and touring visitors to site. Julie and Jane, I like Jane's room. She's got Shapemaster colours. Jane Garrick from Blackpool. Brilliant Shapemaster colours on your wall, Jane. I love it. Julie and Jane have both switched to using the stylus pens that help on the new digital touch screens. That helps reduce touch points. Barbara, John, Barbara's thanking you for the information about marketing the suites at this moment. She loves the idea of the temporary bounce back membership. So she just needs to convince the powers that be. Sarah from Burnley, thank you. She's offered to share videos, I'm presuming, Sarah? Yeah, please send them to me, whatever it is you'd like to send, and I'll make sure everybody's got that. Oh, and Diane's already saying yes, please. I think that's all the questions that we have. I've got one final question for Rachel, and then we'll close. There's a difference. How would you comment, Rachel, about exercise and post-COVID and long COVID?
It's a really good question, and I think people who are post-COVID, but if you think back to that 4, 8, 12-week trajectory, if their improvement is continuous, then we would describe that population as being post-COVID. So it might have been someone who was seriously unwell at the time. They may even have been hospitalised or ventilated. So they're going to be below par for what is normal for them after being so unwell. But the main difference is that they are gradually improving, that they're not experiencing significant relapses. Like anyone, there'll be some days when they feel better than others, but on the whole, the trajectory is a positive one. And week on week, they're feeling like they're walking a bit further, finding everyday life a bit easier, maybe returning to work, those everyday life roles that they would have had prior to becoming unwell. People with long COVID, they're seeing much more ups and downs with how they're recovering. So they're getting fatigued. They often feel that their sleep is not refreshing, that they actually feel worse rather than better following sleep. They might be getting muscular pain. The temperature might still be up and down. So it feels like it's 2 steps forwards and 3 back. And especially the more they do, the worse they feel. So that will be how you would distinguish, and that might be the sort of conversation that you will have with returning members if they say, yeah, I was COVID positive, I'm not quite back to normal yet. That's a sort of conversation or set of questions you might open up with them.
Thanks very much, Rachel. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. It's been really good to see you, and thank you so much for your questions and for your participation. I'd like to thank Rachel particularly for a wonderful presentation, for so much valuable information. We will be making this whole webinar, or this meeting, sorry, available online. So thanks again, Rachel. And John, for you and your team, your support has been amazing as ever at TA6. So thanks very much. Hope you if you've got any questions, of course, please keep the dialogue coming in. Do email me and the team. My email address should be around somewhere, but it's david@shapemaster.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you. So please do keep in touch, and we'll keep trying to support you. And just remember, you've got a vital asset. Go out there and use it, and make yourself a unique solution in your communities. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.